What's up, guys? Welcome to a live stream. It has been a while. Fortunately, we have been more active on the channel, which has been a big goal for this year, is to start really getting videos back out to you guys. The big topic for today, obviously, pending your guys' questions over in the live chat, is 500 horsepower 6.0 Powerstroke builds. I've been seeing this question a lot on Facebook pages, so I figured it'd be a good time to do a live stream and kind of talk a little bit about that for you guys in the audience and give you guys some good feedback. This seems to be a pretty popular topic lately in the forum, so I wanted to do this live stream. I have made build videos in the past, kind of talking about builds, but things have changed since then, and it's been a long time, so I figured live stream would be a great place to go. We are going to be talking about reliable, conservative 500 horsepower builds. Now, we will kind of expand on that and get into some wilder stuff, but to make 500 horsepower in a 6.0 Powerstroke is not super hard at all. Realistically, once you exclude the reliability things, the factory setup is really close. You just need a mild injector upgrade and a mild turbo upgrade, and you're at 600 horsepower. Now, again, we are going to get into the reliability aspect of that, which is a little bit different, but at least for the time being, we'll start with what my recommendations for injectors and turbo sizing are, especially depending on your application. First, guys, if you are in here and you haven't hit that like button already and you want to see more content like this, quick smash that like button while we're here and drop your comments over in the live stream. I do answer all the questions as the video goes, so please don't be shy. Get in the live chat with us. It makes this a lot of fun for everybody, really. And you guys ask some great questions as these go on. So, injectors. My personal favorite, there's a lot of different injectors out there, and a lot of times people want to go much bigger than they need to have a good 500 horsepower running 6.0 Powerstroke. So, my biggest recommendation here is a 175 stock nozzle. That will put you over 500 horsepower with a properly sized turbo. It is a great upgrade over factory as well. You will tell a difference. Definitely one of my favorite upgrades I've done. New turbos and injectors over the stock setup are definitely two of my favorite things. There's something very satisfying about the immediate response and difference you get in your truck. Going over to those. So, a 175 stock nozzle. What's up, Pat? How you doing, brother? A 175 stock nozzle. It's going to run clean. It's going to tow really nicely. You can run some of the smaller upgraded turbos. Like you can get away with a 61 millimeter or a stage 1, as a lot of companies call it. 6 Obros for 10% off over at Turbo Time USA, by the way. So you can get away with a small turbo. It also pairs well with a stage 2, which is actually one of my favorite turbos to upgrade to, because you're going to get a nice balance. You're going to get a nice balance between power and drivability. Now, it won't spool quite as fast as that 61 millimeter turbo will, but you will get a lot of performance from it down the road. So up top, it'll do a little better while you're pulling your grades. Also, 500 horsepower is fun to race, don't get me wrong, but typically guys in that range aren't doing a ton of racing. But the 64 millimeter will do a little bit better down the track, even with a slightly smaller injector. But the 64 millimeter, if you ever change your plans down the road, it is a turbo that will handle pretty nicely 205/30s, which is what's going in my 6-liter right now as we speak. Well, not right now, probably in about 12 hours from now. But and I'm going to run that with a 64 millimeter at first. Then we're going to get back to our GXR7 turbo for a dyno event, hopefully next month, pending everything goes well for the truck here. But let's kind of talk into some of the supporting things, because the injectors and turbo combination, it's not anything wild. Your high pressure oil pump is going to be perfectly fine at this injector. You're not going to need to upgrade further. Realistically, high pressure oil pump upgrades really come in when you start getting over 205s or pushing big nozzles. So a 205/30 should be fine on a stock high pressure oil pump. but you're probably going to need an upgrade if you go 205 100s. I also think a 205 100 is kind of a dumb injector size. I really think you should probably be more in the 225, 250 range if they're still making them. Injectors aren't as common. I'm looking up diesel injectors. But let's see how big Warren sells injectors at right now. And this is excluding hybrids, because hybrid injectors are really meant to focus on people that don't want to upgrade their high pressure oil pump. 205s are the biggest conventional injector Warren's currently selling. That's kind of surprising. I wonder if other people are necessarily doing the same. Oh, Pat, I thought you were texting me something's wrong with the with the live stream. I got paranoid, man. So a hybrid injector is something entirely different, and that's really more race truck, high horsepower builds. But Pat, I will check that stuff out later, brother. You scared me for a second, thinking, "Oh crap, I'm having issues." Anyway, so a 175 stock is great. Up to basically the biggest conventional injector Warren's making, as long as you're a 30% nozzle or smaller, excuse me, your high pressure oil pump is not going to need to be changed out. Do not listen to people. Now, I will say this. Just can't share that on here. Now, I will say this. You need to be testing this as well. So when you do put this in your truck, you want to check your ICP and make sure it's holding during full throttle pulls. But it is pretty... Trying to see what all Pat's sending here. Anyway, I won't share it on here. Don't worry. So the high pressure oil pump's going to really be fine until you get into, like, you're going to talk 650, 700 horsepower builds is really where you're going to start seeing issues with your ICP. On these smaller builds, to get over 500 and even up to 600, you should be pretty good with the factory high pressure oil pump without any real issues. Excuse me. Which brings me to fuel systems. This is the next thing I see people really talk a lot about. I'm running an upgraded fuel system. I have a FASS. It's not a big one. I think it's only like a 125 or a 140, something like that. Fuel pump on my 6-liter, but the factory fuel system on these is actually pretty robust and will handle these larger injectors pretty well. A regulated return that's adjustable is not a bad idea, if not the blue spring mod. And again, this is all considering a healthy system. Some of these fuel pumps aren't loving life anymore, need replaced. I would rather replace to a FASS system over the Ford system pretty much any time. There's obviously a couple different things out there. There's people using low pressure 6-7 pumps to kind of feed the factory 6-liter pump. That's another thing I've seen out there as well. But which the nice thing to that is you're getting a lot of fuel at that point. If you have a healthy 6-liter pump and you're doing a 6-7 pump on top of that to basically feed it, you're not going to have fuel pump issues in regards to how much practical horsepower applications on these at that point. You're definitely going to be well over 600 horsepower with that setup if you're doing it. It's not my favorite setup, but the nice thing is you're always going to be able to get those pumps almost anywhere. It's not going to be hard to do. But realistically, from the performance aspect of parts, guys, that's it. This is a pretty stock truck to be over 500 horsepower. Injectors and a turbo is really all you need, and you're there. And they're both mild upgrades too. It's not massive turbos. I see guys wanting to recommend like stage 3 turbos. Turbo Time has a stage 2.5 or their GXR series turbo. You don't need it for 500 horsepower, and quite frankly, you're going to dislike some of the drivability you're going to get. I'm partially to blame for some of this, I think, because I've really pushed a channel that has been really focused around horsepower and such. However, people want to chase what I've done on the channel, but sometimes they're talking to me and I'm advocating for smaller builds. It's not that I want to separate myself from you guys as much as I've been through those smaller builds to know how much, like, sometimes they're more fun to drive daily than something I have. And they're not going to break as many parts, which is a lot more fun when you're not spending a ton of money for some of these upgrades. So just something to consider about how factory your truck can be and still make 500 horsepower. We're going to head down to the comments here for just to talk about one guy here. And then we're going to come back, and that's where we're going to talk about how do we make it reliable. And then from there, we're going to talk about some of the nice to haves that aren't necessity to make your build nice, but they'll turn around and also help it run a lot nicer as well. So let's see here. Way cool. New to the channel, just got an 06 with some upgrades, went through and did fluids and filters. That's an excellent first step to get the fluids and filters out of the way. Make sure it's actually done. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people that have bought vehicles only to, and oh yeah, they just did the oil and filters only to find out, like, realize how wrong they were about that. Especially diffs and transmissions are big culprits of that. I'm pleased with way cool. That's awesome to hear that you're enjoying your truck so far. So it says some upgrades. What upgrades are on your 06? Do you have a 250 or a 350? I love hearing other people's builds and stuff and things that are done, especially because sometimes they're much smarter than things I've done. Which brings me into the reliability aspect of a 500 horsepower 6-liter. It doesn't take much. I will say this. If you're doing head studs on your truck, do not, I repeat, do not cheap out and not have O-ringed heads. I'm not going to send you in a company's direction. I am going to say do some research. There's a lot of good companies out there. Obviously, you guys know I'm using a ton of Kill Devil diesel parts on my truck. But O-ring your heads and ARP head studs, Ford gaskets, standard, guys, that's how it should be. You're going to live a long, healthy life at 500 horsepower with those modifications. You're not going to need to go like way high on the horsepower. You're going to love it right at this point. That's a great overall build, honestly. The big reason for the O-rings is what they do is we obviously have an engine that's limited in clamping force. We don't have as many cylinder bolts that we need per cylinder. We got 4 instead of 6. A lot of the cylinder head issues and gasket issues go away if we just had 6 freaking head bolts. But we don't, and there's nothing we can do to fix that. So I will stop yapping about that. So you need to have the ARP head studs. They're going to have much more clamping force. I mean, it's just a whole different design of how to secure a cylinder head than the torque to yield bolts that are used from factory. Now, the reason for the O-ring is because there isn't as much clamping force, you can get flex in that head. You can have a perfectly done cylinder head, perfectly flat block, not have it O-ringed, and potentially have a gasket failure, on something that's not that high of a horsepower, really. Now, it can go a long time as well. It just depends how much your head needed trimmed down, if at all, if it was salvageable at all. There are people that are cutting them down further than they should be. A lot of the aftermarket ones have thicker decks to them, meaning the height of the head is a little bit taller to help make this run a little smoother, I should say, or have a little more endurance to it to prevent against flexing. The other thing that O-ring is going to do is it's going to make up for some of that lack. It's going to bite into the gasket, help seal that surface that much better. It will prevent future machine work as well. So you definitely want to consider having the O-ringed heads. In my opinion, if you're talking 500 horsepower, O-ringed heads are necessary. I would never do a 6-liter head gasket job without having O-ringed heads. Once you do that, you're going to enjoy a lot of reliability. So there will have, that's really it for reliability. 500 horsepower, treat your transmission right, change your fluids, filter. Your end transmission should live under that. Now, some of these trans are getting older. Materials do wear down over time. So yeah, you might have a transmission failure, but realistically, you shouldn't if you get fresh fluid. And don't flush them. I'm not a fan of flushing a transmission, any transmission for that matter. But do a drain and fill, new filter while you're in there, switch to a pan, the upgraded pans. I have a whole video talking about upgrades to the 6-liter transmission, the 5R, which is a great transmission, especially for its time. And it will live under 500 horsepower and using it pretty well at that. Let's see here. I'm a little behind. Let me get into the comments here. What are your thoughts on FICM tuning, necessary or not? So FICM tuning is something I'm going to be doing a series on very shortly. In short, it's not necessary. What I do know about it and what I plan to really mess with here is I've heard a lot of people say you can actually tune it to play really nice with larger injectors, help smooth out idle. Realistically, it's the injector nozzle that messes with your idle and how nice it is. But I've heard people say that they're able to really fine tune the injector. You're not going to have ECM tuning and FICM tuning, and those add up. So you can't put 100 horsepower or 150 horsepower ECM tune in and then turn around and put a 40 horsepower FICM tune in and have 190 horsepower. That's not how it works. There's a lot of overlap in ECM and FICM tuning, but my understanding is the FICM tuning can really kind of fine tune things. If you're sticking with an economy FICM tune or a 40 horsepower tow tune or a 40 horsepower FICM tune, my understanding is that you will play nicely with pretty much everybody's engine tuning. So definitely not needed. Falls under the category of nice to have is my understanding. And I do plan to really actually put this to test. I will not be necessarily dyno testing this per se, but I do plan to play with it a little bit and see how it does. FICM tuning is very interesting to me. It's something that's really kind of come a long way. I'm not a fan of FICM tuning alone. I think even if you're doing a mild tow tune, like if you want to be conservative in horsepower, I'd rather see people do an eco FICM tune with a tow tune, or even the 40 horsepower with that tow tune. You're going to love your truck. I hear a lot of people speak pretty highly on FICM tunings, but it does fall under the category, in my opinion, of nice to have. Now, it might be very nice to have, but still not a necessity, especially when we're not talking pulling every last ounce of performance out of our trucks. Now, I know a lot of people do say that they've had better fuel economy with it, improved starting conditions. So it's not to say that there aren't some good features to it, but until I actually test it here shortly, I'm a little unsure. But like I said, we will be testing it in the very near future because I'm expecting to pick my 6-liter back up from the injectors getting done now and some other nonsense I'll go over in a video later. Bulletproof and tune. So way cool. What's bulletproof? Do you have like their air cooler, their EGR, all that stuff, or is it a head stud job, new oil cooler? Bulletproof term gets thrown around a lot, and it just means different stuff to different people. So I always like to kind of get people's interpretation of what that actually means. You have an 05 Lariat, stock except turbo back, transpan. I love that you put a Lincoln Navigator steering wheel on it. That's awesome. Jeff, do you have any plans to do tuning or anything? You're asking about FICM tuning. I will say this, if you want FICM tuning, I would do an ECM tow tune first. That's my personal preference. You get a lot more change in parameters and you can have a better running truck because ECM tuning can mess with a lot more than the FICM tuning can. Again, FICM tuning is, from what I've heard, very nice to have, but more of an on top of ECM tuning than anything else. Coolant filter. How do you like the bypass oil filter so far? I have a Mustang that I feed money to. Yeah, that'll happen, I hear. What's done to your Mustang? Coolant filter, 40 horsepower Ficum tune, all reman Fords, AFE exhaust manifolds, the 64 millimeter from Turbo Time. One of my all-time favorite turbo recommendations is what Ninja Pat down there has, and that is the 64 millimeter Turbo Time turbo. It's phenomenal value. It's a great performer from stock head bolt or for stock injectors up to a 205 30. I wouldn't go bigger than a 30% nozzle. In my opinion, at that point, you should be looking at going non VGT, but 30% nozzle, it'll run. At that point, the GXR, which is their stage 2.5, is probably a better turbo all in all, but man, is that 64 millimeter just a great all around performer for a lot of people. Which we're going to start talking. We kind of started talking about nice to haves here. So I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about some of the nice to haves with this build. So we covered turbos, we covered injectors, the fuel system, the high pressure oil pump system. We touched on the transmission. We got into reliability as well as far as head studs and what I think there. So let's kind of pull back and let's get into what are some of the nice to haves that aren't necessarily going to increase the horsepower by a ton, but are going to make your truck perform better all around. I refer to them as airflow mods, realistically, is what we're going to be talking about. And they're basically anything that improves flow in and out of the engine without increasing strain. So, for instance, when I say strain, if you go to a larger turbo, you increase the strain on your system because now you need to turn that turbo in order to get more boost. So you need to push that turbo harder because it's going to be larger, it's going to weigh more. Whereas there's certain things like going to a larger intercooler that's going to improve cooling of the air going into the engine, which in turn will improve overall drivability and performance of it. So I do believe a lot in this area because I do think it's what will allow you to have better fuel economy. I know we don't buy these trucks for fuel economy, but at the end of the day, if you can get a couple extra miles per gallon out of it, wouldn't you? So first and foremost, intercooler, pretty easy to install. I have a video on it. It's not that bad. And there's some inexpensive ones that have, I shouldn't say inexpensive because I think they're all expensive right now. I get a little frustrated at this, to be perfectly honest. But like Mishimoto released a tube and fin design that is what I think pretty reasonable. Then there is the CSF 6028. I don't know why Amazon wasn't working there, because that's where I was looking for the one. I'm just looking for prices here. There we go. $520 on that's on Amazon. I hate their boots and clamps. Do not buy their boots and clamps. But that's a tough. Some of these links I will be putting out there are affiliate links. Just fair warning, I do get a small commission for them. Let's see if we can still find the CSF 6028 intercooler, because I picked this up for like dirt cheap back in the day. That's around looks like $500. SP Labs. I go back and forth on this company. I'd consider trying it. I'll give them that. So that's my first and foremost. Now I would also look at parts Intercooler pipes. SoCal Billet makes killer intercooler pipes for the 6 liter. That is who I would go with personally. I know I'm going to be switching my MBRP hot side and my no limit, which the no limit's still a great pipe. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be switching those out at some point this year for SoCal Billet parts. Again, the SoCal Billet parts are nice. The MBRP was actually a pretty nice kit. I like the MBRP pipe. The no limit one is another solid piece. These are great parts. But I think SoCal Billet makes slightly nicer. And the SoCal Billet's actually a little cheaper than a lot out there. I think it's $600 for both. So that would be my second nice to have in the scheme of this. These next two kind of get a little on the difficult side because they do require a lot more work to get in. And that is an ODOG ported intake manifold. I think makes a big difference. You have a major restriction in the intake manifold, especially to the rear cylinders. It is a massive drop in airflow from the front to the rear, which a drop in that distance is inevitable, but you can improve it. So the ODOG ported intake manifold, it's much larger than factory. It does still fit in there. It's a little tight, takes a little finessing to get into place, but it is an absolute great intake manifold, and it does make a difference in your overall performance of your truck. So I would highly recommend that, personally speaking. The next one, exhaust manifolds. For pretty much everyone out there, I recommend the BD exhaust manifolds for the 6-liter. They have a very thick flange. They're very well made exhaust manifolds for the truck. And I would also recommend their Y pipe. I think they have the nicest Y pipe. The Y collector up there seems to be the smoothest flow of air in. And I think that's one of the biggest things to improving these engines is how smooth can we make the airflow in and out? How much can we help it flow in nicer than it did factory? And I think that will make an impact. Now, again, maybe you don't see a huge horsepower. Nick, what's up, brother? Maybe you don't see a huge horsepower increase from that, but I do think you will see performance from all those. And then last, we talked about every way to improve airflow into the engine, other than getting ported heads, of course, but how about getting it out? And that's really where, well, I guess we did start talking a little. The exhaust manifolds, the Y pipe, the turbo's been touched on. I do think we should be getting then an exhaust system. Now, I run a true 4-inch turbo back exhaust. I will say this, they are a son of a gun to fit in your truck. There is a part of that exhaust that does need dented in to fit. So what most are doing now is they have a 3.5-inch downpipe to a 4-inch out the back. That is what I would recommend for most people. The 3.5-inch downpipe will give you actually better flow than factory. Factory is just a 3-inch that turns into a 3.5-inch out the back. So a 3.5-inch off the turbo, it'll give you better flow, but you'll also keep some spool up. When I went to the 4-inch exhaust, I could actually tell a difference down low that I lost a little. Now, you pick it up pretty quick. It's not like the end of the world, but it felt like I lost a little down low, felt like I gained a little up high. Now, with a lot of the modifications and tuning I've done, I can't tell a difference anymore. But for people in this 500 horsepower range, a true 4-inch turbo back exhaust is kind of, in the scheme of things, a bad idea. It won't be terrible if that's what you have. Don't go change your downpipe if you have a 4-inch. But overall, you'll enjoy the drivability of a 3.5 to a 4 or 3.5 to a 5, whatever your preference is at that point. And realistically, guys, that just covered all the basics for a 500 horsepower build. So it's not as crazy as a lot of people want to make it out to be. I'm going to get caught up here in the comments because I know I'm a little behind. BMR catalog over there. Your Mustang sounds wild, man. I like it. Oh yeah, the Riff Raff CAC boots are amazing. They're definitely one of my favorites if you're running stock pipes. If you're running stock pipes, you should have them on your truck, and you should have a backup pair. Granted, they're pretty durable. But realistically, every so many years, you should just be replacing those boots. They wear out and then they cause issues. There's power loss that people don't realize they have. I'm a fan of just replacing them and keeping them in check. Could have bought another Mustang from part cost. 69 Mach 1. Candy apple red and black. I like it. Let's see here. I was looking to buy a 6.0 Powerstroke crew cab. Head bolt Sinister Diesel, I believe. Wait. Head bolts or head studs? I hope you're still... Okay, you are still in here. I see you down here. What did ICP, Sinister Diesel, intercooler pipes, and coolant filter for Sinister Diesel? So when you say head bolt Sinister Diesel, do you mean they bought head bolts from Sinister Diesel? Is Sinister Diesel now branding their own? I could see Sinister Diesel. I'm Googling Sinister Diesel head bolts. They do have titanium exhaust manifold bolts, which sound really cool. I don't know that I agree with the $237 price tag for them. And they're blue, of course. We all know how I feel about Sinister Diesel. They get me upset. As far as studs go on double checking that, it's actually really easy. If you look at the valve cover, you can, in the bottom side of it, like right below the valve cover, you can see the bottom row of head bolts or studs going into the engine. So you can actually look right there. You don't have to open the truck up to find out if you have studs or bolts. Let's see here. And now, I will say that Sinister Diesel does sell a fair amount of Ford parts. So they may have just bought Ford parts from them, in which case that's a good thing because most Ford parts are pretty decent. Let's see here. Also, fins on transcooler, EGR delete. Straight pipe, 200, no blow. What would I check on an 04 with no tuner 7 owners? We will talk about my issue with Sinister Diesel in a little bit. Biggest thing that you want to get your hands on is some type of monitor. I'm actually, earlier, right before this video, I was working on editing a video where I talk about, no, you don't need to apologize. Sinister Diesel upsets me because I think they take advantage of people. We'll get into that. It comes up almost every live stream, but typically it's one of my moderators that harass me about it more than anything. So you have a 200,000 mile 04 6-liter. First off, great truck. I love the 04 engine, especially if you... Well, I should say this. There's 3 different engines technically in the 04 year. There's the early 03. There's where they kept the 03 high-pressure oil pump, but they changed the turbo and the oil rails on it. And then that's where they switched to the whole new setup down that eventually was carried out through the end of production. Nick, they do think they own blue. Easy there, moderators. They're going to be coming after you guys soon for your name being in blue, even though that you guys had nothing to do with that. That was me giving you the moderator. So here's what I would do is first I'd start looking for signs of exactly what engine you have, because you do have a couple different things to potentially look for. And I do have a video talking about best year 6.0 Powerstroke. After this stream, I would check that out because it's going to go into some of the differences of this year. So first thing you want to do is look to see if you have an ICP sensor on your passenger side valve cover by your glow plug module. If you do not, that means you have an 03 engine and all parts of it are 03. But if you do have that, you need to check one other thing. If you have the ICP sensor on your passenger valve cover, that means you definitely have a 13-blade turbine turbine shaft on your turbo, which isn't a bad thing because in 04 it was the larger size. In 05 they went to a smaller size turbo. But you need to look under that at your high pressure oil pump cover. If part of that cover is open and the pump itself is sticking out of, then you have a true 04.5, which is the latest. It basically has pretty much all the main updates that came. The issue with this and the one anyone that has the ICP sensor on the valve cover is I would be looking at doing standpipes, dummy plugs, and snap to connect fitting on that for reliability. Some of those jobs are a little tougher, like getting to the high pressure oil pump is a little tougher. You have to pull the turbo. Again, I have videos on that, but it's also something you need to be very careful when you take that off, because anything falls in there, it falls down into your engine and you're probably not going to get that back. So just something to consider when doing this. It is something you can definitely do yourself. But again, I don't jump the gun yet, because getting a good monitor, whether that be an SCT SCT, don't monitor with SCT. I hate them for that. I love them for tuning, hate their monitoring. Whether it be an Edge CTS tuner, Torque Pro, and a cheap OBD2 adapter on your phone, or my personal favorite, Forescan. The adapter for Forescan to work properly is a little more expensive, but it is completely worth it for how much you can do. And the software itself is actually free to use on a laptop. Excuse me. Well, or a PC, but it's probably pretty hard to sneak a PC out to your truck to check things. That is the first thing I would do. Do not go start buying parts and just throwing it at it. You'll be very frustrated in that regard. But realistically, monitoring it, finding out how it's performing. So is your FICM at 48 volts at all times? You should get some kind of way to check fuel pressure, which you do need to put up a manual gauge to it. To make sure that your fuel pump's not dying, because your fuel pump dying will take out your injectors. And that becomes a very expensive day. So the biggest thing that you should do first, get some type of device to monitor it. And then I'm releasing a video hopefully tomorrow. I have it half edited right now. That's going to talk about 6.0 Powerstroke no starts and long cranks. We get into hot starts a little bit to start explaining what things you need to monitor in order to help start diagnosing your truck. And then this is going to be probably like a 5 or 6 video series and playlist I'm going to be putting out on diagnosing no start conditions in 6 liters. So the first video is just going to be the intro, and it will be helpful to you. It sounds like your truck's running fine now, so I wouldn't worry too much. But in the future, this could be helpful. It will help you know what to monitor as well while you're driving your truck. Let's see here. So as for Sinister, I do think this may have got touched on. Sinister Diesel frustrates me mainly because I'm really out of practice. I'm already starting to lose my voice. Don't worry, we have the cough drops. So Sinister Diesel upsets me because they overcharge for a lot of parts. And they've done things like basically claim to own the color, literally the color blue. Like they want people to ask them for permission to run it. It's not to say every part they put out is bad. There's been hearsay about some of their parts being made from China, which I will say this, I believe some of that to be true. Now, I think some of their stuff they've gotten better with. For instance, their 6.7 cold side intercooler pipe is pretty much the only one that looks the way theirs does. So I think they've gotten better. But overall, as a company, they are a bit on the frustrating side. to say the least. My biggest issue is they charge premium money for non-premium parts, and like their turbos. I don't even, so here's their Series 2 turbo. And a lot of times it's literally just a Power Max. Like I'm looking at it right now. This one advertises a billet wheel, which is rare. But a lot of times it's literally a Power Max turbo. Or it's a factory unit that with a machine cover. Like you don't get much going to it. They've had quality issues with some of their parts, like their Y pipe. Which is a shame because the Y pipe like collector is actually pretty slick what they did. But they may have actually gotten away from it. I'm looking at it right now and it looks like they may have finally just gone to a better design. Which takes me to their $2,000 exhaust headers for a 6-liter that you're never going to see the benefit from. And they're going to leak. How I know they're going to leak is everybody I've ever met that ran them had them leak within the first year. So I just think they could have better business practices and have better parts quality than they do. That's my big issue. They're overpriced. At sometimes they've literally sold essentially factory parts painted blue for several times over the actual cost. Pulled up their turbos again. Like, this is legitimately a Power Max turbo painted blue, and they're charging $2,100 for like a $1,400 turbo. Robbery. Anyway, so that's my issue with Sinister Diesel. It's not that all their stuff's bad. I just think they've had some bad business practices, and I think the way they handled the way they're trying to advertise like that they own blue is stupid. Let's see here. I know I'm a little behind, guys, in the comments. I'm getting caught up. I'm a little rusty, but we're going to get caught up here. Thinking of buying a 135,000 mile 06. So what's your move to start building for longevity? So I kind of touched on this, William, a little bit ago. One, they probably replaced that high pressure oil pump without needing to, unless they just put a snap to connect fitting on it, then that's fine. Standpipe stummy plugs, if they haven't been done recently, making sure you're going to do that. That'll help keep the high pressure oil pump system happy on your truck. That would be the first one. Good monitor. Know what's going on with your truck. Again, you'll be a good one to watch the video coming out soon. Like I said, half edited with basically it's diagnosing no start and long start conditions on your truck. But a lot of these things are good to keep an eye on throughout the year and just know where they kind of sit. I do not recommend people do head studs if they haven't been done unless you're having a problem. Now, once you have a problem, that's different. Or if you're talking about building a 600 horsepower monster, 700 horsepower, whatever, where you know you're going to blow them if you don't do them, that's different. But for people, even if you plan to build it and you're like, I want to go 500 horsepower, whatever, I would wait till they blow. I don't recommend doing them just for fun. It's a very expensive job. I would be saving up for it and preparing to have it done. But I wouldn't just go do it for fun. It's too expensive of a job for that. So now what would I be preparing for? If you have the plastic side intercooler pipe, get rid of that junk. Go check out my turbo sponsor, Turbo Time USA, buy a SoCal billet one. Intercooler upgrade as well would be an excellent one to do. Um, in the scheme, really, it comes down to monitoring and figuring out where your truck's at. Make sure your alternator's working correctly. Make sure you got good batteries in there, that you're not going down to 9 or 10 volts during cranking. You want to keep your FICM happy. Make sure your FICM's not dropping low. Fuel pressure, really big one to monitor so you know you're not starving your injectors for fuel. 45 psi while driving is a necessity. You don't want to be like 45 psi at idle and done. That's not checking your fuel pressure correctly. You need to be driving with it to determine that your fuel pressure is holding at a minimum 45 psi. If it is not, it is damaging your injectors. You will shorten their lifespan significantly. Big fan of arch oil with my oil changes in 6 liters. Make sure you're doing your oil changes when they're due. The hydraulic system of those injectors is very hard on oil. You will help lead to stiction if you're not maintaining your oil. And again, arch oil is an excellent product to help with that. There's Hot Shots is another pretty popular one that I've heard good things about as well. And arch oil makes a fuel additive I've used in my 6 liter, and I like that pretty well also. Yep, Pat, I agree with you. If you're going to do heads, O-ringed heads are 100% a necessity. I feel like I missed something here. Sorry. Okay, here I am. Researching O-rings. Put icons on. I think the icons are figured out. I think mine appeared to be cracking a rocker box. I'm super frustrated about my truck at the moment, but that's a video for another time. And after Kill Devil Diesel and I finish talking about some stuff, for flow, nothing beats the icons. An icon out of the box is going to do better than ported irons. I think ported irons, though, are probably more reliable right now. They're a more proven design. DDP has the DX aluminum heads. They've been running those for a while. The aluminum 6 liter heads are a little out there, I think, but I love the idea of the icons. I have one of the first handful, honestly, casted. They just didn't get on a truck very soon. Sorry, I'll pour myself a little more ginger ale here. But for what I do, they're worthwhile. Pat, did you look to see how much UFC's port job is on the iron heads? Because I will say ported head, getting better flow to the 6 liter is a good thing. It is a touch of a restrictive engine, unfortunately. But UFC has a great reputation, great stuff out there. Truck is 13.5 side swipe from bed back. Tailgate is intact. New bed on it, which is not a King Ranch. I'm looking at painting. William, I think that's a good idea, man. I think you'll love it. Speaking of which, how much do I know about aluminum heads? More than I care to admit. I'm going to hold the aluminum head. I'm going to actually put this down here in the chat, so when I get to it, we can talk aluminum heads once I get caught up a little bit. Not much power, no paperwork or work done, but I can see it. UFC is a heck of a reputation, I will say that. Sorry, guys, I'm just a little behind in the chat. I'm trying to get caught back up. I like Promax. Oh, that's cool, Nick. I didn't realize that. Yeah, if I had to do head gasket, like anything past, like if I'm going to do a job that expensive, I want a decade out of it. And that's even if I'm abusing it. Like for me, 600 horsepower is not so crazy of a number that I should have to worry about cylinder heads that often with what I have done to mine. William, reasonable oil changes. Honestly, every 5,000 miles. If you're a little over, a little under, that's fine. 5,000-mile oil changes. I run Ford oil. The only other oil I would consider is Schaefer's. I stick with the factory, what is it, 1040. So, and that arch oil is also helpful as well. But I would not push oil changes on these. Even if you have, like, even if you're sending your stuff off for reports and they're saying it's fine, in the scheme of things, it's cheap insurance to keep your injectors happy. That's how I look at it. What's funny is years ago, I did cylinder head videos talking about them. It is probably time for an update. I think I did one. I do think I did one a couple years ago, but I do need more information on. I need more information on the icon heads before I can do it. Pat, you should spend the 875 and get them ported. That's actually a really reasonable porting amount, and I think you'll be able to tell a difference. If you go UCF, I know that's more money than you probably want to spend on an already very expensive job, but that is $900 well spent, I think. Would you get a 6.7 Powerstroke 13 deleted straight pipe disaster kit or 6.0? Oh, this is really tough. And you might know this already, but I do 6.7 content as well. I have a 16 on the channel. We're converting an XLT into a platinum. I have a video. I feel like I've quoted videos I have a lot today. I have a best year 6.7 Powerstroke video. 13 is the first year they really kind of had the 6.7 completely dialed in. 11 and 12 were still good years, but 13 is their first really good year. The 6-liter or the 6.7, I was 10 minutes back online. So the 13 got steel bearings in the turbo, which greatly increased its longevity. You can upgrade the factory turbo to a you got me here a little bit. So you can turn. How many miles are on the 6.7? The 6.7s are good trucks. I love my 6-liter though. If I had to pick, I don't know exactly what I'd go with. Let me answer this by saying what I would do if I bought a 2013 6.7. So you save 20,000 miles going with the 6-liter. The 6-liter in the scheme of things is a easier, cheaper turbo. I just saw your comment. Cheaper truck to maintain and fix. First and foremost, your cost of fixing 6-liters is going to be much lower than fixing 6.7s. So, this is what I would do with the 13, because they did get a lot right. I believe there was a cylinder head revision, an upgrade to the glow plugs, valve material and hardening process was changed in 11 already. The CP4 pump is garbage, just like they are in the later years. I would look at converting to a DCR. I plan to do that on my channel once my channel, like, financially is back up and running where it used to be, so it's kind of covering the cost of that. I would upgrade your turbo. I would do exhaust manifolds to the 15 style, excuse me, which I will be having a video showing that. I would get the crossover pipes for a 15 turbo, and then I would definitely get my turbo sponsor's turbo. Now, I do want to say this. I am rattling off some rather expensive stuff. Just to put this in perspective, so the retrofit kit that you would need is $1149. I would go with a stage 1 Predator GXR 62 from Turbo Time. That's $2,800. Now, I can save you 10% on the turbo with my affiliate code. But that's a lot of money. Now, I do think after that, you would actually love that truck. I would eventually do a piping kit on there as well. That is not a needed right now. So, I mean, I just rattled off like an easy $5,000 to mess with on your 6.7. I lied, 6. I think I'm at like $6,000. That's a lot of money just to be at baseline, in my opinion. Especially on a 220,000 mile engine. Now, I do know multiple early 6.7 trucks that are well into the 300,000 mile range, and some pushing 400,000 miles with good maintenance. So you got me there. 6 liters. They're great trucks. They have really aggressive cam profile related to EGR flow. So you do have some concerns there. That's a toss-up. I love 6 liters. I will never get rid of my 6 liter. There is a point where I will be selling my 6.7. I know that. And part of that is because I'll do another build on the channel with a 6.7 once I sell mine. Now, mine's not for sale currently. I need to finish the build I'm doing, have some fun with it, and see where like my YouTube channel kind of is at that point. But yeah, so you got me. And here's the thing. This is part of why I have a 6.7 and a 6 liter, is I think they're the two best Ford diesel options to buy right now. Some 6.7s are getting more reasonable in cost, but I do think also the price is kind of through the roof for some of those trucks as well. So that's a tough one. 6.7s are expensive to do any kind of real performance mods to. I think the 6 liter is a little more user friendly, even though you have a higher chance of needing to do head gasket job. I think I'd go 6 liter. In the scheme of things, even if you need to do head gaskets, it's probably going to be cheaper, especially to have go fast parts and stuff like that, or have your truck performing really well. I've towed with both of them, the same exact camper, and I can safely say I don't have a major preference. The nice thing with the 6.7 while towing is it's going to be quieter. Your family's going to like it more in regards to that. But they're both excellent trucks in my opinion. I do like the newer suspension, but if they're both in the same condition, I think I'd go 6 liter. I do plan to, we will talk about icon heads here in a minute. This is a good point Nick brought up here. Keep in mind, when output goes up, life expectancy usually shortens, but not always. This is a really good point. The 6.7 Powerstroke is an overall more robust design. The engine, better materials overall. Getting a 6-liter to live the same life at a truck that's similar in performance to a factory 6.7 is going to be hard. There's no way around it. So what becomes hard is guys that are chasing crazy numbers. And this is why I'm such a fan of such a modest 500 horsepower build, because you're going to minimally impact the life expectancy of your truck. You are going to cut some time off, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the same degree as going at 600 horsepower on a relatively factory truck. Like, I'm building my 6-liter to basically handle that nonsense the best that it can. But I did a full rebuild and the block was machined. Everything was done up. So most people aren't going to go that far. But again, that's why my recommendation for a 500 horsepower builds as mild as it is, because most people have you with bigger injectors and what I'd refer to as a little bit sloppier performance in regards to things. But again, even a 600 horsepower truck, if built correctly, even without doing some of the stuff I have, ideally you have all the stuff I've done, but if built correctly, can still live a long, healthy life. But the 6-liter as a whole is not going to still last as long as a 6.7 at this point. Now the emissions are brutal on 6.7s. That's really the big drawback, is how much of a life shortening do we see on that. In some instances, I've seen no evidence to support that it really does. It's more expensive to maintain, eats more fuel that way. I think a 6-liter is easier to work on too. I think a 6.7 takes a little more time to get to certain things. 600 horsepower, way cool. 600 horse. So you should really like my current build going on for the 6-liter, especially. Hopefully, I'm talking about it again this week with it back and driving. But 600 horsepower is what I'm essentially shooting for. And it'll be a really, I should be up there provided I don't have a sticking brake caliper again on the dyno. But 600 horsepower is easy to do. You definitely are going to want studs on that. 600 horsepower is not going to hold without studs. You also are going to want to consider transmission upgrades. And transmissions are expensive on these trucks. So I just want to keep this all in perspective. Excuse me. By the time you get injectors and a turbo, that's probably $4,000. A head stud job is probably going to be another $6,000, depending. Don't hold anyone to that, because it's probably 6 to 10 is probably the going rate. Transmission's going to probably be around 8 with a torque converter, maybe 9. I should look up. So I do recommend one guy, Randy's Transmissions. These things are freaking beasts, but let's see how salty they are. Oof. No, they do stage them. So let's see here. So a stage 2, they rate for 650 horsepower. You get a billet triple disc torque converter, a shift kit, modified pump, new solenoids, billet input shaft. If you, they really actually have a nice website too. I will say this: I would rather go their stage 3 because their stage 3 has, they say, good for 900 horsepower, but I imagine this at least has billet overdrive, billet intermediate. Yeah, so that has the whole. That's $9,800. That's expensive. But yeah, at 600 horsepower, you're probably going to want to consider doing a transmission. You're going to want to at least do some type of build on that transmission to kind of keep you going. Not that you need to do it right away. Like, you can do your build just as long as you know you have like a $10,000 bill coming up. Fuel system. Nah, these transmissions are wild, or super expensive. Now, you can be on your way to your build and probably get away with a decent amount of what am I trying to say? You can probably run it for a bit, especially if you're being reasonable on the road and you did take care of it. You're keeping an eye on your temperatures. But do understand that transmission in the scheme of things is going to be hating life if you're really beating on it all the time. You can definitely get away with it for a bit, but it will need it will eventually need it. Mr. Lopez, your coolant temp is low. Your thermostat needs replaced. Your delta between the two looks fantastic. You're 11 degrees. That's perfectly fine, especially you're going a little faster than normally, than what the test should typically be at, which is 65 on flat ground. But your coolant temp is too low. So your truck is not really fully getting all the way up to operating temp. It is, but it's on the low side. Your thermostat shouldn't open up until closer to 190. If you're at 181, then your thermostat is probably stuck slightly in the open position. The CP4 pump, if it's like a $10,000 job if it goes bad on you. Now, if you have the disaster kit, you should be good. It's not a guarantee, but people have failed. As long as they put the SNS disaster kit or SPE on there, then you should be okay. But even even CP4 is going to be a bit expensive to replace. I do eventually plan to do a video on this, but that's not coming anytime soon, unfortunately. Oh, way cool. Thank you for watching the videos. It's kind of funny. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I will say this, for 2 years, I took a pretty big break as I finished up some schooling. But whiskey. But I've done this for so long. I think I have over 200 videos posted or something like that. And it's grown so much bigger than I ever really thought, even though I'm a small channel. But I'm trying to see how many videos, if it tells me. 238 videos, and that's just actual videos. That's not There's another 9 shorts and another 51 live streams that I've kept up. Now, some live streams I've taken down over the years for various reasons, but yeah, it is crazy to see how big the channel has grown, at least for me, because I never thought it would be this big. Now, the biggest thing if you guys want to help getting out there and pushing this content to people, using my affiliate links is a major help. And turning around like any discount company I have using DSD parts, Turbo Time USA, those are major helps for me because that's what really keeps the channel afloat. But you do not have to either. I don't like those are just ways to help me. Spreading my videos and stuff is a major way to kind of help. But I do appreciate all you guys tremendously for what you do as far as helping keep me going. It's a lot of fun. Coming back was a little tough, especially initially. I'd post a video and I'd lose like 5 subscribers. So that was a little tough when I first came back. But no, the channel's about really, truthfully, helping people, showing you guys a good time when I do dumb stuff like drag racing. But it was a lot of fun to really build the channel with everybody and do some of these things that's been helpful to some of you guys out there. Let's see here. Yeah, so I mean, your stock transmission, like way cool. Your stock transmission should handle about 500 to maybe 550. You want to have that fresh coolant, fresh filter, like I talked about earlier. But oh, my puppy. She is upstairs sleeping, last I saw. Sometimes she comes down and sometimes she doesn't. It's there for a while. She used to come down to all, but once people in the house start going to bed, I don't see her quite as much normally. And then when I do, she wants to wrestle and stuff. Whiskey goggles engaged. Way cool. I'm glad. I hope my videos have been helpful and have helped you, man. That's awesome to hear. I'll use your link, spread the word on channel. Hey, Bounce, thanks you, man. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Hey, Pat, do you by any chance know what like shop time would be on doing a CP4 replacement, like labor wise? I'll open another window here. 6.7 Powerstroke CP4. Replacement time. So here's one on a 2018 saying 6.2 hours. So it's a $2,000 part. They're saying, I don't know, 6.2 sounds on the light side for labor. I bet you're probably paying a shop 10 hours. That'd be my guess. Like 6.2 seems a little on the light side for shop time, which is what most places are going to charge you. A DCR pump, it's aftermarket, so they're going to charge a little more. I do plan to release a step-by-step video on doing it. Like I said, I just need to be back where I was formally before I can actually justify spending $2,000. Yeah, hit me up, man. Before I can justify spending $2,000 on a part that hasn't failed on my truck yet. I also want to do a disaster kit install, which is kind of annoying because I plan to turn around and switch over to a pump that doesn't fail. But yeah, so that's that. There's 6 of you guys in here right now. If you haven't, hit that like button and then drop in the comments how many of you guys this is your first live stream that you guys have come to with me. Pals, what would I do with a DCR? Honestly, for the DCR, that's really probably all I'll do at the time. I do plan to go with a pusher intake at some point. I really like this, but I have not gotten them to really respond to me in a while. I would like to try some of the intake setups. Like H&S has one where they get rid of the plastic plenum and you get an all metal one that looks pretty snazzy. I would like to try that. And I believe it gets rid of, like on the plastic one, essentially there's mufflers in there that are designed to kind of like keep things quiet. I would like to get rid of them. But yeah, weird looking intake. Anyway, I plan to do that separately though. I don't plan to really do much else in there. There isn't a ton else to do that like is a maintenance item. Like they're bigger jobs. Like I need to do exhaust manifolds on my 6.7, so I plan to do that in the near future. But you can't really do it like right now because I need my 6-liter back and running and reliable before I can tear that down and have it down for a couple of days. So those are just some things I'm working on. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that like crosses my mind that I would do that needs done while you're in there at that time. Like it's a cool, like I would recommend if there's something else you need to do, it's a good time because you already have a bunch of stuff off the engine. But for me, like I want to do exhaust manifolds as its own standalone video. BD Diesel actually sent them to me years ago for the black truck I had. I got rid of it. I hung on to these because I want to do that video and send it into them because they do deserve it, in my opinion. But it's not something I would necessarily do. Like I would definitely consider exhaust manifolds while in there because you pretty much you're halfway down to them. But exhaust manifolds are a freaking job. But you got to see Zach play with Phil. You said headers had some minus compared to manifold. So there's only one company that are making headers for the 6-liter, like true headers. There's some people that have a manifold style with a longer like inlet to the header, like manifold itself. But those are guys running non-VGT setups that are looking for places to put wastegates and stuff like that, blow-off valves. For us and a vehicle that has the manifold, we're not outflowing the manifold. You go to BD manifolds, you're never going to run out. There's also I think it's Punch Out Performance. They make Steed Speed made 6-liter manifolds for a hot minute, and then they got out of it. Well, Punched Out Performance bought like the rights to the design or something from them, and they are probably the coolest set of manifolds I've ever seen. They're also $1,000. And you can go up even higher with exhaust like yeah, you're probably going to spend $1,100 before tax on these things, but they are freaking awesome. Yeah, they're the premium. Excuse me, and they're big. Like they're going to have a lot of flow. You do not want to go with the Sinister Diesel headers. They're poorly designed. They warp. They're leaking on most vehicles I've heard of running them. It is just not worth your time or energy to deal with that. So I would not run them, personally speaking. And I think that's all for my trash talk on them. I think. I make zero promises on the latter part of that statement. But here's some minus. So yeah, I think that's it for that. There's only the 6.0 had sinister manifolds. That's upsetting to hear. You might be replacing them. And again, I can't guarantee that. It is my dislike, but I will say this: almost everyone I know running them has had to replace them. So monitoring systems for the 6-liter. Forescan is probably the best diagnostic you can have, other than like legit Ford IDS. And I don't know if IDS lets you change all the modules in certain things like Forescan does. Torque Pro is hands down a super powerful, super easy to use for Android phones. With a cheap OBD2 Bluetooth adapter, you can be good to go reading a lot of stuff. In my opinion, the premium is definitely going to be the Edge CTS Insight, not their tuners. Do not tune with Edge. Use their Insight to monitor things. That is what you want for it. Those are great and a lot of fun, and you'll enjoy it. They can look pretty nice too. I plan to run a CTS2 in my 6-liter. I am going to probably try the Banks iDash for the 6.7. I'm not the world's biggest Banks fan either. Not to say I think he makes bad stuff. I think he makes very high quality stuff, and I think the Data Monster or the iDash, whatever the heck it's called, is probably really, really nice, and I want to try it. But I don't know how well it is with 6-liters. Edge CTS, they're on what, the 3 now? Which I guess I could just leave a link to that. They're expensive, but you'll like them overall. Let's see here. Just quick pulling this up, making sure it's the right one. I'm going to just send this search. That is an affiliate link as well. You will like that. Like, it's such a nice monitor. Again, there are cheaper options to get you, but in my opinion, overall the nicest. Easy to hook up other sensors to it if you want to look at fuel pressure, if you want to hook a manual gauge up, if you want to do a manual boost gauge, which is a common one that you should want to do. There's a lot of options that you can mess with in that. I was lucky enough to see Fullman left Ozfest. And nice, never. iDash is pretty sweet, and your buddy's 5'9". Yeah, no, I think the iDash is cool. I plan to really do use it in the 6.7. I think it'll be nice in there. I also CTS doesn't have any nice like ways to make it look like it belongs in the truck on the newer one, so I like that the edge seat or the iDash has like a nice holder that kind of looks like it's part of the truck more, I think. Um Should that be my first purchase overall? See what's going on. Absolutely. Getting an Edge CTS will definitely be your best move because it'll let you start seeing a lot of stuff, monitor it while driving, pretty easily at that as well. I don't know if you can get the CTS2 really without looking used. I don't know that I saw a lot used. Oh no, there's 84 130 compared to there's one that at least uses a CTS2 picture, but I don't know that it is Pat, I can't remember. Can you reset when you're not driving? Like, does it let you do that, or just anytime it does not let you reset codes? Or is it just while the truck is in drive? Because that does sound like a safety feature I could see them adding. Um, William, though, I will say this um, before you go and spend that money, I would consider looking into how good torque is. Like, I love Torque Pro. You can use it really cheap, and it's a nice way to like. Uh, I can in just a second, but it's a nice way to start monitoring without spending, $400 or $500. Do I think that $400 or $500 in the end is worth it? Especially when you can hook up to fuel pressure, run a different exhaust back pressure sensor, when you can do all those things. Absolutely. But Torque Pro lets you do some cool stuff as well. And for monitoring, it's hard to beat. But let's see here. Saw some videos on Blue Springs being a cheaper fix to maintain longevity. So I want to preface this first. Buy a Ford Blue Spring kit. Do not buy the cheap ones. The problem with the cheap ones is you might have one that works perfectly fine. You might have one that's lower, and you might have one that is higher. Um, but the Ford one is going to be the correct length for the Blue Spring mod. Just some Ford parts guys do not know it as a Blue Spring mod, so you don't want to reference it as one. You want to just ask them for the fuel spring for the fuel pump. That way they will get you the correct thing. If you ask for the Blue Spring mod, they get very confused. And the reason it's Blue Spring is there's a finish on that makes it actually literally a little blue. Um, so but I will say you also want to verify your fuel pressure because you can do a Blue Spring mod and still come up short. And that's a sign that your fuel pump is dying. Okay, so you have some money to play around with. Now, I don't plan to spend all of your $10,000 budget. Did I see that correctly? So, William, were you the one that had the 600 horsepower goal too? Or was that way cool? Okay, way cool wanted 600 horsepower. Making sure I'm keeping all my people straight here. So in that case, we have a little bit of money um to safely invest without worrying about power upgrades. So what I would do is I would buy the Edge CTS monitor then. I would also buy one of their expansion kits and look at installing a fuel pressure gauge. The fuel pressure gauge is pretty easy and installs right on the front of that filter housing, and then you just run it to the edge. There's some setup. I don't have a video on it yet, but something to look at. If you're keeping a stable fuel pressure, then you're good. You don't have to worry about too much there, at least yet. But you're going to want to keep an eye on it as well. Way cool. We'll talk about 600 horsepower goals here in a little bit. I did kind of forget about that. I'm sorry. So before you touch anything outside of that, get that monitor, get an exhaust probe hooked up if you're going to be towing. And it's a good way to keep an eye on things as well. There's definitely stuff you'll want to do to yours, Will, but I wouldn't do it all at once. I'd get the truck and I'd start looking to see its overall actual health. Is my fuel pressure good? Am I holding ICP? Does my IPR seem to be good? What's my FICM doing? Are my exhaust temps good? Like, I would actually assess the overall health of the truck prior to worrying about what else you're going to buy. So you might end up being $500-$600 into being able to monitor all that with the Edge CTS, but or you no, don't buy YouTube Premium for me. Just watch my videos, man, and comment. Unless you want YouTube Premium, truthfully, I do see some of that, but I'd rather you watch the ads and just watch my channel. If you want to, sometimes people super chat. You don't need to do that either. But when you're buying through my affiliate links using, Turbo Time USA, if you have to buy a turbo, stuff like that, calling DSD parts for things as well. That's how you support me. Watch, comment, hit a like button, buy from affiliates. Don't buy an extra YouTube Premium. So you might be about $600 ballpark into being able to monitor everything I want you to monitor. But in the scheme of things, that'll allow you to be way ahead in the future. Well, yeah, Pat, they do have a turbo timer if you want. I don't use a turbo timer. I never have. What I do is I'm very diligent about after very long drives, especially towing, I will let the truck run at idle with my hood popped open for about 5 to 10 minutes just to let it cool down. That's again, though, I'm 5-6 hours of towing is my shortest tow I typically take with a truck. It's just good practice to kind of give it a little breather at the end of it is all. Don't worry about it. Well, at least it was a starter and not anything else. But yeah, I think that'll be your best course, man, is get that monitor, get that whole monitoring system set up, and then you can start looking at what's happening with your truck and what's its overall health. Are you making boost, or are you only seeing 15 psi of boost? Is your exhaust back pressure looking good? Figure things out. But let's see here. Let me shit. But at least it was your starter and it wasn't anything with your tuning. I think you'll like a video series I'm doing. It's going to be my next video out where I talk about no start and long start conditions, and I talk about starters in there as a note in as well. So I think that's one that can get missed sometimes, and we start looking at other things like tuning when it's actually a starter. William, thank you for your service. I appreciate that. Love any of you guys serving that watch the channel. I mean, I love all you guys, but big shout out to all of our service members for everything they do. 55, 60. It's good to go. So injectors will get. Before you do injectors, watch my video coming out to see a lot of the stuff to really check out. I mean, not that it couldn't be injectors, but you want to really be careful. Like, a lot of shops will tell you need to do this, and it's not those. Are you getting any injector codes right now? I would be looking really more at, are you holding ICP pressure? What tuning are you running? Was it happening before tuning? I had a tune, I forget what tune it was, but man, did my truck hate it. And I would get random stutters, and then it would drive perfectly fine. I changed the tuning. All of that went away. So some tunes don't play nice. I worked with the tuner. We tried probably 5 or 6 changes. But you want to make sure before you replace injectors that you have adequate fuel pressure and you're holding your ICP pressure prior. You know, if your truck's only making, of half of what it should make, have a 4 tune, but it wasn't aggressive. I'm running a toe tune. When I step on the pedal, goes away above certain tune. Well, I have to think about that one a little bit. That sounds weird. I would run a good cleaner through your fuel tank. Arch oil makes a good one. Throw a thing of arch oil in your oil now and see what it does. Try to figure out why you're having issues, because if you're having a stiction related issue, which is kind of what it sounds like, sometimes arch oil can help mitigate that a little bit so you can stretch your injectors a little longer. But that's kind of what it sounds like to me. But yeah, and that video is going to be more to assess what's going, like, what are your potential issues with your truck, as opposed to deep dive into all the issues. But I do plan to do that soon. I want to come up because there's a question I do want to answer. Where the heck did it go? Nick, status on the white truck. So the white truck is hopefully coming back this week. So let's see here. There were some issues we were having. Cracked rocker boxes. I've been through 2. Now we seem to be, that's fixed. But I had to get a set of rocker boxes sent to the shop. Heads have been back down to Kill Devil Diesel for a thorough go over. So there's been a saga, and I'm trying to talk to Jared at Kill Devil because I have some concerns I want to hammer out. But yeah, it's been a headache. However, the truck is going back together. It's got 205/30 injectors in it now. I still have the stage 2 64 millimeter from Turbo Time on it. I will be provided everything goes well. So there's 2 issues. I was cracking a rocker box, and I had a wet cylinder. We think it was from the valve stem. like the valve seal on the cylinder head was leaking. Kill Devil says they went over it and showed some love to everything. So hopefully that's resolved. If that is not resolved, I won't be able to make a dyno event next month, which will be quite upsetting. But right now, I'm hoping to be able to make a dyno event next month with the truck and get it on the dyno. But yeah, so that's the big update. Essentially, though, we should be getting a 600 horsepower monster back, and that's what I want. I'm very excited for this. I missed my 6-liter. I got to do a ball joint on it right away so I can get it inspected so I can legally drive it to New Jersey. Because the last thing I want is pulled over in New Jersey. Two different cylinder contribution codes on one tune with a different tune, no issue. Lance, I've seen that before, and the one thing I will say is pay close attention to contribution codes because I've seen guys have that. A lot of times not far after they've had injectors that needed replaced. Double check your fuel pressure, especially while driving. Make sure you're holding at least 45 to 70 psi. Preferably in the 50s seems to be the sweet spot. I'm getting behind. It happened before tuning wasn't aggressive. I'm running a toe tune. When I step on the pedal, it goes way above 2. Oh, yeah. No, so they're talking about can tune or custom tunes, not can tunes. Can tunes are okay until you've driven a nice custom tune and you realize how much better that tuning can be. What's your goal for truck this year? I really want to be close to 600 horsepower on the dyno with the 6-liter. I'm really hoping to make that. Just honestly, having it back, making content, doing some tune reviews, some turbo reviews. I have the injectors I want, so I don't know that I have much more outside of that I want to do right now. Other than drive it and make some content with it and fix it up. It sat at a shop for a long time. It is starting to look nice. Like I got all my door handles color matched and put on. Cleaning it up, just getting it running and driving nice is really my big goal for this year. And fix some of the little stuff that makes it feel old. I do plan to redo my entire sound system this year. And that's a lie, not the whole thing. I'm adding an amp, a 4-channel amp, doing door speakers, sound deadening, fixing some leather in there with a new leather cover. I wouldn't say anything super crazy wild with the 6-liter. The 6.7, I'm going to continue doing the XLT to Platinum conversion. I do plan to do a 2016 Tremor build with that. They didn't offer the Tremor in 16. I'd like to essentially start building one, though. I think that would be kind of cool on top of it. There will be some performance mods for the 6.7. I don't fully know what all they'll be. Well, that's a lie. Pusher intake setup and piping kit. I do plan to do BD exhaust manifolds, a Turbo Time USA turbo on the 6.7 at some point. I don't know that all that's getting done this year. If the channel really blows up and is doing amazing, then a lot more of that will happen. The 6-liter really comes into a lot of reviews I want to do. I want to mess with Fickum tuning. I want to review tunes from the top guys out there right now. Kind of point you guys in a direction with stuff. So that's really where I'm at. Do that dyno event. Maybe go to, maybe have it at a car show or two here and there. But truthfully, nothing too wild and crazy. Getting it back on its feet and looking nice is probably top priority. Lance, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've seen people. I mean, I didn't realize I had a fuel pressure issue with my truck until I was monitoring it, and I realized like driving from my brother's home, like just cruising at like 40, my pressure dropped to like 20. She's gone at one point, but it was just a bad D. Well, that's good. It was just a cap. What question did I miss? Probably a dumb question, but are 4x4 front shocks the same as the two-wheel drive shocks? I believe they are. I don't have a definitive answer, though. Let me see if I can look it up. They look to be the same shock. Come on. This is killing me. Yeah, I'm 99% sure they're the exact same shock. I'm not seeing any differences come up for two-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive. So 70 to 75 psi on fuel pressure is the upper limit of what you want. It is still technically safe. Over 75, you can start to mess with O-rings in the injector and seals. So 70 to 75 is okay, but you are on the high end. Looking forward to more 6.7. Thank you. The 6.7 content does not do well. And I think it's really because I've built an audience on 6 liters. And I think when you guys don't see 6-liter stuff, you don't necessarily see 6.0 bro stuff. But it is still here. It's not going anywhere, I mean. But yeah, I do love those trucks. I do love that truck. I can't wait to have it back. But we are doing more 6.7 stuff. Like I said, there's the Tremor build idea I have, the XLT to Platinum conversion. I'm super excited about that. Mainly because I think that one hits home with a lot of people. There's a lot of people in that boat. They have an XLT. They wish they had a nicer end truck. Like, it's going to be a whole build series of literally taking your truck from, my truck was as bare bones as they come. We have remote start. We installed fog lights. I have my head unit build. I need to actually do that video, but excuse me, that's going to be a cool one. I do plan to do the Atlas tune reviews. Yeah, the turbo time turbos do make the 6.7 sound better, especially if parts are missing. 6.0s have gotten a little expensive lately. I don't understand why. The 20530s are being installed with the truck. So it'll be tuned and everything when I have it back. I mean, it's tuned now, but it'll be tuned for the new stuff. OCD, are you doing another one? Have you looked into blown EGR cooler, brand new? Lance, absolutely, man. Glad to help. One of the things I try with this is to make sure that I'm like, I think one of the things that sets me apart from a lot of other people, especially when I was doing this all the time prior, was no one else really was doing live streams. Now you have Powerstroke, Tech Talk with Aaron. Oh, I've watched that skit too many times. Um, Aaron. Um, he's got a phenomenal channel. I'd actually at some point would love to kind of like meet up with him, and I think we could do some cool videos together. He's got a killer channel, and he knows it. He's a tech. He clearly knows his stuff. But I think that's kind of cool. Like this was something that set me apart. Now he does a live stream with a bunch of guys. I haven't personally watched the full thing, so I don't know what all they do, but I love the idea behind it. I loved when I did it 2.5, 3 years ago when I really started hammering out live streams on a regular basis. I think when you do them and give you guys a good audience, I can answer questions. When these do get busier, that was harder. I think my biggest one had like 60 or 70 people in it, which was a great time. And that's when I started putting moderators on here. Which reminds me, where's Mongoose tonight? He's supposed to be here. And so's Doom. But a lot of these guys, they do a video and then they never respond to you because they're getting so many comments or it's just hard to do. This is a way for me to try to like still communicate with you guys, and I have a lot of fun doing it too. Looking for the next build. Hard to find extended cab two-wheel drives for blown head gaskets. Would love to collab when I get one. OCD, where are you at? Like in the world? Because I actually want to do a video. I love to go down to you might actually know that. I like to go down to Myrtle Beach. I was gonna say I'm trying to I want to do a cab on head gasket job on a 6-liter with the shop that I have been working with on some things. I really badly want to do it. I mean, it's a big job. I'd need to talk to him about it, but it would be a cool project to do. Yeah, that'll be cool though. Let me know what you get, and how close are the state fairgrounds in comparison to Myrtle Beach? I didn't know this company had an intercooler out. I might have to try this intercooler. I love finding new stuff to try that catches my interest. UCF has a great reputation for super good cylinder heads. I will say that. They were probably one of the first to be known for as good as they are. Six to 14 weeks out. That's a tough. So Myrtle Beach isn't terrible. Yeah, a lifetime warranty. I don't know anyone doing that. That is pretty cool. I do like that idea. I will say that. Sorry, sometimes that is killer on the old vocal cords, let me tell you. Let's open up UC. I haven't been to their website. No, they're actually relatively close to me. You should definitely do the porting, man. It is worth it. And dude, if you ever call these guys and talk to them about cylinder heads, like they know them so well. Original complete reman heads with long cups, lifetime warranty, outright purchase with no cores per core return per sale. Yeah, man. O-ring head. I think that's the way to go. No, OCD. I'm in Pennsylvania. I drive down to Myrtle Beach and I camp there. Normally I go once a year. Sometimes I miss. I might miss this year. I'm not sure, but normally once a year I go down. It's a great time. I love Myrtle Beach. There's a gym. It's called Legacy Gym. I love to train there when I'm down there. It's just I'm a big fan of being down there overall. But guys, we are gonna probably soon here call this quits. It's been a great live stream. I've had a lot of fun. We are going to probably have to save the 600 horsepower build for a video. Better spool up with porting. I feel like I can tell a difference with ported heads. I mean, technically the icons aren't ported. Just I do feel the truck overall runs better, provided I'm not leaking oil. Kind of a major frustration for me personally. But they're definitely good stuff. Nick, this is true. We are not at the 3-hour mark. I will say this. My goal is to my next goal is to get to 3 hours. Honestly, some of this is me physically feel like 2 hours of nonstop talking is a little tough on the vocal cords. But I do want to get back to doing our 3 to 4 hour live streams. Is definitely on my list to do. I'm looking, I'm hoping to have more of a following again. I want to get back to when we had 50 people in here. And I mean, I want to make it as big as possible. So bear with me as we're not quite where we were, but we will get back there. I've been much more consistent with my uploads, and I will be more consistent with live streams as well. Live streams are one of my favorite ways to interact with everybody. I love responding to comments. I've been trying to go. I was commenting on somebody that left a comment for me 5 years ago the other day. They called me out. They go, dude, it's been 5 years. Now, I think he made fun of me, which is fine. But just kind of, I'm trying to go back and interact as much as I can. And like I said, very excited for what the rest of this year is going to do on the channel. And thank you guys for all you do. If you guys are new or just coming in, you haven't already, I'm sorry you missed this live stream. We will be doing more in the very near future. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a like yet, guys, and I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you for all the support, everybody. I hope you have a good night.